viewers, this is the Allegra 812 on the Rhaetian Railways, or RhB. And this is just going to be a very quick tutorial on how to set up and drive this train. Alright, let's go and jump in the cab, as you do. Come around, get the door open, climbing up. This is the same for console and PC, naturally enough, and sit in the big chair. The first thing you need to do is get your master key in, which is in a masterful place. So if you hover just above the whistle, you'll be able to click on it. And you can see it's kind of over there behind the master controller. Alrighty, now let's get our reverser into forwards. Put our headlights to full. Tail lights to red. If it was raining, you could put your wipers on here if you want to. But it's not, so we won't. Now put your mirrors out should you desire to. They don't actually do very much because mirrors aren't really a thing in this. Now you might want to check your pantographs. We're operating on a DC railway, so we need the front and we need the rear pantographs up. We do run with both. If you're running on an AC railway, you would drop these two and put up the centre AC pantograph. So if you were running it over on the Rosalini, you would use AC. Okay, our other controls are, we've talked about the master controller and it's got the whistle on the top of it. This is your throttle and brake. So push it towards the dash gauges, it's throttle, and pull it back, it slows you down. It's a brake, it's a regenerative electric brake. It can't stop you, it can only slow you down. You have a cruise control. Cruise control is mandatory on these locomotives. You can't turn it off, and that is prototypical. However, should you wish to drive without cruise control, because the cruise control uses the throttle and the regenerative brakes to maintain the correct speed, no matter what the landscape looks like, there's nothing really to stop you bunging this thing up to 120 kilometers an hour, and then you can drive with the throttle and regenerative brake yourself, remembering to stop, of course, with the train brake. So it's a little bit of a workaround for you. I'm just going to set this to 20 kilometers an hour because we're doing some shunting. Over here we've got our parking brake, which is in fact off, and we have our train brake, which is currently on full service, which is where I'm going to leave it for the moment. Now, because we're going to be heading up the hill, we will set our destination to be St. Moritz. There we go, St. Moritz. And if we hop outside now, we should see St. Moritz on the front and some headlights, and we do. And if we look at the back, we should see St. Moritz on the back and some tail lights, which we do. Magnificent. Okay, all good so far. Any questions? Oh yes, there's one. Safety systems, thank you for asking. If you're on consoles, I'm afraid you're going to have to plug in a keyboard, at least for now. But if you do Shift-Enter, it turns on Vigilance, which is the little thing that wakes up every now and again and decides to make sure that you're still alive. And if you don't acknowledge it with Q, B, or circle, depending on your controller of choice, then it's going to stop your train. The other one, which is Control-Enter, is the normal safety systems, which is SISTI. SISTI, or ZS, pops up whenever you approach a signal, or a mainline signal anyway, and it basically yells at you until you acknowledge it. If you don't acknowledge it, it'll apply the brakes. See? Fun police. Anyway, it's time to drive, so let's just knock our brakes off. A little bit of a whistle, and we can give the train some power. We do have a proceed signal there. Now we're doing a little bit of shunting, so I'll leave the power on so you can see what the cruise control does. So we've reached 20. It's using a little bit of regenerative power now to slow us down as we go down this down slope. I'm going to throttle off now, and I'm going to use the train brake to stop us because the regenerative brake can't. You can use it to slow down, that's fine, but you can't use it to stop. Now on our gauges, we have the center one here, which is our speedometer. We have a vacuum gauge. We have the gauge for the brake pipe, that's this yellow one in the middle, and you can see that's currently dropped down to 4 because I've applied the brakes. And we have the gauge for the brake pressure in the cylinders on this vehicle, and that's currently showing 2.5. which is the amount of brake force I have applied. Down below we have our indicators of whether we're generating or using power. Alright, we're going to put our reverser into reverse because we need to... Oh no, we didn't quite make it, did we? We need to go forward just a tiny bit. Right, now we should be fine. Stop again. Doot. Oh, you're kidding me, really? Okay, it's one of those exact ones. I love them. Alright. Yay! Alright, let's check our path. We're going to go back up here towards some vehicles. Now we do have some signals in front of us, so we need to bear that in mind. Alright, put our reverser into reverse. And when you're pointing uphill, we're pointing downhill now, so it doesn't really matter, but when you're pointing uphill, you actually apply a little bit of throttle before you release the brakes. Now what's going to be a little bit important here is we're going to want to contact the signaller. Until I get a contact signaler response, I'm going to stop. Because I didn't get anything then. Let's just go up and see if that signal's gone. Oh, it has, look. So contacting the signaler was good enough because it has in fact gone yellow. And the other signal up there is not facing us. That's the one that we were sitting behind before. Okay. So even though it didn't say anything on the screen, it has actually done what we needed to do. Now I'm just going to reduce our cruise control down to about 5 because that's a good shunting speed. Pop back outside the train here. Now I'm told the Swiss, a bit like the Germans, don't actually hoot for crossings. So they just let Darwin do his thing. You know what? 5Ks is a bit boring. Let's go up to 15 just briefly while we're heading back up towards the coaches. Alright, now let's set it back to 5. And you'll notice we've almost immediately slowed down because it used the regenerative braking to do that. It's now applying a little bit of power to propel us along. Five is a good, albeit not exciting, speed for shunting. We get a bit closer, I will shut the power off and we'll just coast into the coaches. Whoop, there's our vigilance. So I acknowledge that in my case I'm using a keyboard, so I used Q, but you would use B on an Xbox controller or circle on a PlayStation controller. And if you don't acknowledge it, brakes go on. Resetting's pretty straightforward. If the brakes do get applied, you just put your throttle back to 0, acknowledge, and then the brakes should release and you should be able to drive again. Now I conveniently am using a rail driver, so I don't have to pop back into the cab to shut my power off and manipulate my brakes. Alright, there we go. We are now coupled. Looks like there's a bit of a glitch in the graphics there with the coupler bar off the hook. Never mind. Let's go back into the cab now. Reverse it forwards. We do have a proceed on our signal, 2 vertical white lights. So So release the brakes and power up again, and off we go. And we should be bringing our entire train with us now. Certainly looks promising. We do seem to have red lights on now, though. It's a bit interesting. Did I not turn the headlights on before? Perhaps I didn't. There we go. Headlights. Now, our cruise control is, of course, set remarkably slow, so let's just pick it up. We're allowed to do 30 in the yard. How progressive is that? Acknowledge the vigilance. I was just doing a bit of manual control myself. In fact, why don't I set the cruise control up to 120, and while we're pushing back into the platform, we can do a bit of manual speed, manual control. So let's start slowing down with the regenerative brake, knowing that it can't actually stop us. Just come back to 0, and we should be able to stop now with the train brake. There we go, we're a little bit past it, that should be okay. It is. And back into reverse. Now let's just check our path. Now we do have a signal that's at red there, so once again, proceed as signals indicate. Ah, it told us this time, that's fantastic. And that signal has gone green to go back into the platform. So we're going to be driving ourselves this time because we've set the cruise control to ludicrous speed. Thank you, Spaceballs. So we'll have to drive this ourselves and maintain a reasonable progression as we head back into the platform. I am noticing that there's not much of a central off spot for the rail driver on the controller, so if you're using a rail driver, it's a little bit finicky about getting that power 0. Now I'm not going to believe that 200 odd meters. I'm going to shoot up here because the 200 meters is often measured from where you are, not where the back of the train is. There's our annoying vigilance control. Let's put on a bit of regenerative braking and stop with the air brake, because we're in about the right spot. And there we go. That's our shunting service and our little tutorial, which is now completed.